Hi, everyone. Welcome to 21st Century Saints, our podcast and live stream series for members, those affiliated with or adjacent to or hang around or are interested in even a little bit or think members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are completely crazy. Wherever you fit in that Mormon spectrum, this is for you. We focus here in the United Kingdom and around the world. It's great to have you all with us tonight. We're going to be talking about a subject that's really close to all of our hearts and hopefully be listening more than we're talking tonight. We're going to share our guide to pride, and we're going to have this special focus on the transgender experience. As allies, we need to know from our trans community what our blind spots are, what we need to do better, what do we need to know about your lived experience. We have our 21st Century Saints Ruth in the chat, so it's great to have her here. And I'm just going to get everyone to say hi. So we've got our usual co-host, Sara. Do you want to say hey?
Hi everyone, it's good to be here, and I'm really looking forward to taking a very backseat role tonight and being able to learn from Landon and Leon. That's my role tonight. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. Where do you mind me asking, Sara, and you can say no to this question. Do you mind me asking, where do you fit in the trans spectrum? You're cisgender, right? Your pronouns are
Pronouns
she, her?
are cisgender, pronouns are she, her.
Awesome, thank you for that.
But member of the gay community and love that.
Yeah. So we have Sara, who is a member of the queer community. I am an ally. I have way too much privilege to even really sort of be considered anything more than someone who just is a cisgender white woman. So I am part of the queer community in that I am bi, and I have spoken about that in church before. So my Landon is here tonight, and we've had this conversation a few times before. I don't think I would go so far as saying I am gender fluid. I am more I would have said gender bendy, but it sounds more poetic and balletic than and graceful than I actually am. So I would say maybe gender curly from time to time. So I'm happy with. I do get a kick out of him. I have been, addressed by he, him pronouns a few times before, which has given me life, and I really love that. My pronouns tend to be she, her, but I'm happy with any pronouns. I don't mind any and all pronouns. And I know that some people have lots of different thoughts on it and don't like to think about their pronoun use because they are very clearly in their minds part of the binary. So I'm going to introduce us now that we sort of your hosts have talked about where we are. We want to introduce our guests for tonight that we're going to take hopefully a deeper dive into your stories another time, but for tonight maybe we could just introduce a little bit about you both. So first of all, we have Leon with us. Leon, do you want to say hi and tell us a little bit about what your background is?
Hi. My background is a little bit, came out as trans 3 years ago, 4 years. I don't know. I can't remember because I have lost track of time. But at some point during the pandemic, I came out as trans. Wow. But now I'm looking into it a bit more, and I'm still figuring myself out.
I love that because I've only ever known you as Leon, he, him, and the thought of you having this life that was before that, and that it's still not this binary idea of who you are. Thank you for sharing that. So your pronouns are
he, they at the minute, and then she to my little girl because that's just too complicated for her to understand at the minute.
Thank you so much. We also have with us one of my favorite human beings in the entire world, my little best friend, my Landon. It's so good to have Landon here in the podcast because we've spoken about you often and talked a little bit about your experiences. Thank you for agreeing to join us tonight. Do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about who you are and what your background is?
So obviously I'm Landon. Currently my pronouns are any of them, but I only put the three main ones there because I don't think this thing, like 9 sets of pronouns right now would be too good to get your head around without forewarning. But I came out as queer and like 5 years ago when I was like 11. And I'm everywhere in the queer community. It bounces around a lot.
I love it. I feel like you are just so gender fluid that it's really helped us to see that there is not a binary as it relates to you. So I have so many things that I am really excited to have you share tonight. So I want to start off with some questions. We've got Grandma in the chat here as an ally. We're going to be going to Pride Edinburgh. Landon and I are going to Pride Edinburgh with my mother this Saturday. So we're really excited to hear about what kind of thing do we need to know about our trans siblings. Can you tell us, Leon, a little bit about what's happening? We know worldwide it is not a good situation right now. And as most of our audience tends to be over in America, these things often will come up in the news. Can you talk about what's happening? So the United Kingdom obviously is made up of several countries. Your focus is your experiences in England. So and there are separate laws there. What's happening in England?
What's not happening in England? So the UK government banned all conversion therapy for everyone except for trans people. And I think that was like last year or the year before. And now they are trying to pass a bill that bans it for everyone. It's currently in its second reading at the Houses of Parliament. But they've also put into practice that teachers now have to report to parents if their child is questioning their gender, which is just going to put thousands of millions of children at risk of abuse and harm and being kicked out and homeless. Like, I'm a safe parent. I wouldn't mind if my child was questioning their gender. But there's so many thousands of parents that aren't safe parents. So yeah, the UK government's just screwing trans people even more.
So at the moment, if a child is in school and they are trans, teachers
or questioning,
or question, yeah, exactly,
or even questioning,
yeah.
So at the minute it doesn't. They don't have to. They are
Right.
currently putting that into place for September. Okay. They're trying to push it before summer, but the aim is from September onwards. If your child goes, hey, I don't know if I'm straight or what, they have to report it to the parents.
I mean, that's really, really worrying.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, most of our schools are church schools.
Right. Is there time to do anything about that? Is that still up for debate, or is this an inevitability?
It's an inevitability.
Okay.
Leon, do you know, is there been a groundswell of people writing to their MPs and saying,
yeah, so Stonewall, if you go onto Stonewall, which is a UK charity, there's a template that literally you put your postcode in and it's pre-writ, and all you have to do is press send, and it sends it to your GP, to your MP.
I'm going to pop a link to that in the comments.
Really
Leon, there's something else that has been, I think this was maybe from a couple of years ago, but it's still having an impact today, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about the conversion therapy ban?
Oh my gosh.
Which is wonderful, right? There is a ban on conversion therapy. Could you explain it a little bit?
So they've banned conversion therapy for people that are gay, for people that are lesbian, for people that are queer, essentially. But then they didn't ban it. They didn't go as far to ban it for trans people, which is what the issue is they banned it so you can't be forced to go to a gay camp, an anti-gay camp, essentially. I don't know what they do at those camps. I've never been to one, luckily. But I'm assuming they force you to be straight and pray to be straight. But yeah, that has essentially now been banned in the UK. And if anyone is caught doing it, you will get jail time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's for someone under 18, it's child abuse, essentially. You will be done for child abuse. But for someone over 18 that's not vulnerable, you'll still get jail time, or you just won't be. as rough.
Okay. And where does the transgender and non-binary community fit in that legislation?
So trans, it didn't get banned for trans people, which is what we're currently working on with MPs, and it is in Parliament at the minute. So it's got to go to Parliament and then the House of Lords. So it goes through two processes of being, I don't know, checked off if allowed. Non-binary, I don't actually know where that would sit under. Trans or queer goes on the UK government, I don't know, version of what they think of that. But yeah, so yeah, they banned it initially and everyone was like, yes. And then they're like, yeah, but not for trans people. And they did that on Trans Day of Visibility last year.
Wow.
Just as an extra stab wound.
So what we're noticing across the world is a definite attack on specifically the transgender community. While there's a lot of progress being made for the LGBT community, the trans community seem to be particularly vulnerable right now. Landon, you are the youngest of the group that's speaking today, and you have this really this perspective that is most needed, because a lot of these things that are being put into place are directly affecting you in that age group. So when we're talking about trans kids in schools, we're talking about you. Could you speak a little bit about what was happening in Scotland around the laws? So we have our own devolved parliament, and it can make its own legislation in this area. That is a devolved power. Could you speak a little bit about what we saw last year?
So there was a gender recognition reform bill that was going through, and it passed. It was with a wide majority, it passed. And it was just to allow trans people to identify easier and to just be affirmed in their gender. And we were at the protest outside the Parliament while it was being going through the motions, and we were showing our support, and there were obviously the opposing side were also there being all and then it came out that Westminster was blocking it, and that in fact Scotland, you don't get to make a choice in this. It doesn't matter what you want because you're still part of the rest of the UK, and we don't want trans people to have these rights. So it was kind of a blow to the chest. I was like, oh, I thought I was going to get something special here, because one of the main points of anguish was the fact that it was lowering the age a wee bit so that people my age would be able to do the identification stuff, but no one like someone 16 being able to choose anything about their life.
Right. And so I'm just going to pop this up on the screen because this was something that was really, really important. The BBC and lots of news outlets were covering that. We have our Landon there right in the front row. As part of that really joyful protest, there were members of different faiths and people of no faith. And I think what was quite jarring to me was the counter protesters. It felt really, really uncomfortable. I mean, they were so angry, whereas this was a real sort of celebration. I feel like friendships were being made and people were so affirming to each other, both allies and members of the trans community. It was a beautiful moment. And so from this photograph, it passes the debates that had happened up until that point. The debates in the Scottish Parliament were full of misinformation, really transphobic things that were being said, and we're completely missing the point. Clearly you haven't read this legislation, because the gender reform bill wasn't about who can use toilets. Those rights are already enshrined in in the law. Your human rights are protected. This was about making it possible for you to not have to, how does the gender recognition bill, how would that benefit you specifically?
I I would just be able to state and have it proven that I am my gender, that it's not that it's legally recognized. Because right now, when I go to school and that, it's always like a fear, like it's a roulette. Will they, won't they get my pronouns right, get my gender right, get my name right to a degree? Because even though I go by Landon and I've been openly Landon since I moved here, people still have my dead name on things, on documents, because they say they can't change it. And it's like, well, you can. You're just looking for a reason not to. So it's just, I want to be comfortable in my own skin. And that bell was going to be a big part of that.
Right, exactly. So, and that was, while passed in the Scottish Parliament, that was blocked in Westminster in the UK Parliament, and there's still a lot of tension about that and some, protests around it. Scotland was so excited about this, and so there's issues around the democracy, absolutely. Landon, would it be okay if I ask you to maybe comment a little bit more about what you were saying about your experience of living as a young person who's trans? What's your school experience like?
For the most part, it's people know I'm trans. My social media is all openly me being out. I just don't, it's not hidden from anyone. All the staff know. But when you go to school and it's with students who are so hurtful, like I get hate crimed a lot, like physically, verbally, like slurs thrown over the place. Teachers won't correct themselves usually unless they're talking to my guardians, which then they'll suddenly be like, this is someone who can actually get me into trouble, so I'm gonna, correct myself right now. But generally it's a lot of uncomfortableness, like in how I have to dress and what toilets I'm expected to use, because they'll just tell you to use a disabled toilet. They'll tell you to use an accessible toilet if you're trans, like to change in PE and that, and I don't feel comfortable with the insinuation there. It's like, don't do that. Also, I'm not someone who needs to use an accessible toilet, so it feels wrong, especially living with someone who does have to use those toilets. To use those toilets. So it's really the most uncomfortable experience for me as a trans person is going to school.
When you say, so teachers are not good at remembering pronouns, do you feel like they understand the need for pronoun respect, or?
I don't think they understand at all. If I had it my way, I'd have them introducing their own pronouns at the start of the year and that, because that's setting a good example. I don't, like, if you're cis, you still need to be sharing your pronouns. It's, just decency.
Leon, speak to me a little bit about pronouns. How does respecting your pronouns, why does it matter?
I mean, my 4-year-old respects people's pronouns. Yeah, I know my 4-year-old respects pronouns, and like anytime I'll meet someone new, she'll go be like, "Hi, what's your name? What are your pronouns?" And yeah, it's important. It's someone's mental health at the end of the day. If you call someone by the wrong pronoun, can we swear? You're messing someone's pronoun. You're messing someone's mental health up, because the minute you say, "Oh, hey, this is she," and they're a he or a they, it's going to screw their mental health up and send them into a depression or an anxiety attack. Or, just try. It's hard. Don't get me wrong.
I want
I
to
mess up.
police your language, Leon, so you express yourself in whatever way you wish.
I'm also being aware that my 4.5-year-old is on the other side of the bedroom at the same time. But yeah, it's just like I still mess up with pronouns, and I'm a part of the community. We mess up, it happens, but go, "Oh, sorry," or just correct yourself. It's not hard to do. My 4-year-old does it.
There's a difference between, I think, messing up.
I'm just not doing it.
My kids,
Yeah.
I can't even get their names right. Never mind their pronouns. Like, you know, it's a thing. We're gonna get things wrong when we go into autopilot. But I think also what I see is people who are trying but then really panic because they've said the wrong thing, and then you have to make us feel better because, oh no, we messed it up, and it's sort of drawing more attention to it. So what do I need to know about? Okay, Landon's pronouns, I think, are really interesting because there are quite a few of them. Okay, let's go from the beginning. Why isn't it just he, him? Why isn't it just he, him, or she, her?
Because it's a spectrum.
So
It's a
for
spectrum of
those,
gender and pronouns.
yeah. So, but we are taught. So this is obviously, you know, a podcast that has this background in a high demand religion, and we've all had different experiences within that, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But we're taught when we have a sort of biblical narrative, things are very black and white. There's heaven and hell. There's, you know, how the creation looks. There's the earth and sky and all that separation. There's a binary that is often presented to us, and it can be really hard to, you know, just sort of taking myself back to that headspace of male or female. We're talking about sex organs, and that's what the definition is. It seems really obvious that there is a spectrum, but it isn't for those of us who have been trained in. So would you maybe patronize us? Would it be okay to ask you to patronize your, like, that really patronizing question? I mean, sorry, could you explain a little bit about why it's not a binary?
Landon may have to help me because I'm still learning myself.
Yeah,
with
no,
me on,
that's awesome.
I've only been out for a few years. I'm what you call a baby trans. I'm a baby gay. It's so what I've always taught, and luckily I didn't grow up in a high demand religion. I grew up in a pretty standard house. So if in doubt, you always go for they, because you don't know who they are. Like, so the way we got taught is I've got a friend. I don't know how to explain this. So, for example, my mum's name is Tracy, and that's a male name and a female name in some countries, right? So you go, this is my friend Tracy. They work in hospital care. Because you can't assume people are going to know their gender or know who you're talking about, especially with a gender-neutral name. And then I'm trying to think of the words. But yeah, it's hard to just categorize male and female. And I know for high demand religion, that's all it is it's man or woman, man or woman, man. In the Bible, it's man or woman. And then when you get introduced to this whole new world, you're like, wait, there's more than one gender or one pronoun. And it's just, it's hard. I struggle to get my head around it. I'm learning about all the different types of pronouns in the spectrum. And it's just, you have to just be willing to learn, is my thing. And ask questions. We don't get offended if you ask questions.
I love that. And I really appreciate the labor that you are both putting in this evening to answer these really patronizing questions that are so bloody obvious, but so many of us, we are just not educated about. Landon, there is no gender binary. There is no, what do we mean there's a spectrum? Because this is huge news to so many of us.
Well, I think I compare it now to autism in that. Like, there's no one way to be trans. There's no one way to be cisgender. There's no one way to be anything. Like, how I perceive my gender will be completely different from how another gender fluid person would see theirs. How I use my pronouns will be completely different from how any of you will use yours, because we all see it in a different way. And so the gender binary, like, it's such a spectrum, and it is just all about how you perceive yourself. And then it then goes to how you want others to then perceive you. So my pronouns don't always link to how I'll dress. Like right now, she is included in my pronouns, but I'm dressing more masculinely. And that's a big part of me being non-binary, is the fact that I break gender norms. And that's just always been part of who I am.
That is really, really helpful. Do you mind if I ask, Leon had alluded to sort of mental health issues that can frequently happen in the transgender community as a result of being unsupported. Do you mind me asking specifically if I'm not using the right pronoun for you, or if I'm making an assumption about what your pronoun is, how does that harm? Why is it a big deal?
Well, first of all, it can make me feel physically sick. Like, it's a really nauseous feeling. Like when I used to get car sick a lot, it's like deep in the pit of your stomach, and it's this feeling of like dread. Like, this is how people see you. And then that affects how you see yourself, because if other people are seeing you in this way that you don't want to be seen, then slowly you start believing that as well. And I know when I get misgendered or dead named, it's frustrating, but it's harder because it's just sad. You just feel sad. You feel like anytime that anyone's misgendered you, like that feels like it's, coming back to you. So if you've had a traumatic experience with someone else misgendering you, that will come back to my mind. That will hit me all over again. And it's really painful, because usually it's out in public as well when it'll happen. And so you just have to kind of get on with it, and you can't start a fight. Like, if you start a fight over this, you're not going to look like a good person. Some people don't take well to you correcting them. Some people will get up in your face because they feel attacked, but they're not really angry most of the time at you. It's themselves, and it's complicated, I'd say.
Thank you so much for that. What you described there, that physical feeling. Could we talk more about that physical feeling? So is that what dysphoria is? Is that what gender dysphoria is? Maybe we'll start with you, Leon. Could you speak a little bit about, and what is it that's happening when you are not living as a gender, or if that's been imposed on you and that's not your gender?
You just hate everything about you, which is what gender dysphoria is you physically just hate every part about your body. Like, you look in the mirror and you just want to cut it all off, which is, I started with the hair. I shaved the hair off. The hair was the first thing gone at 16. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I obviously have different reactions to Landon. I don't get physically sick anymore for being dead named or called the wrong pronoun. I do start fights, by the way, if someone does it on purpose. If someone does it genuinely by accident, I still have people in my life that I love dearly that will still call me the wrong pronoun, and I know it's a complete accident, and I know it's not malicious. But yeah, if someone does it on purpose, I'm the person that does start fights, that does give us a bad name.
Does that happen often, that people do it on purpose?
You wouldn't have no idea, especially in England. Shock horror. I live in the transphobic place. But yeah, it happens quite a lot. It happened quite a lot with a lot of my old friend group. I have a very small friendship group now, because they would just not even bother to try. And it was church people. It was from different types of churches. So I'd be like, see ya. Yeah, it would happen quite a lot. And I'd be like, yeah, bye. I was old enough that I could just cut ties and never see them again.
Landon, what is dysphoria? What's that like for you? I know you talked about the physical symptoms there. What else is that like?
Well, mine changes sometimes even hourly, because I'm so fluid with my gender that I don't have control over what shapes it. Sometimes it's certain people, sometimes it's just an emotion that day, but usually I wake up and I have to ask myself what's going on. But that's why it's so difficult, because I didn't realize I would have realized I was trans much sooner, I think, if I experienced dysphoria in a more regular way, like sense, because I like being feminine and I like girl clothes and I like all that stuff, but it just depends on the day. So when I feel the most dysphoria is whenever it's a masculine day, because obviously I'm in an AFAB body, assigned female at birth, and that's, you know, it's just things like having breasts. You like wear your binder as tight as possible for as long as possible, and you know it's risky, and even in hot weather, and you know, there is, like Leon said, that you want to cut it off. You want to cut them off. You don't want them. It's actually like, get them off of me right now. But then the next day for me, I can be just like not caring. I can be apathetic towards them. It's not, they're not always so repulsive to me. It's just when they are, it's the hardest thing ever.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I wonder, because you sound so you know, clear, and you can express this really well, and you know, you're talking about the days where, you know, the days where maybe the dysphoria isn't quite as overpowering, but I have seen you in those moments where you have, you know, looked in front of a mirror and just, you know, you are not able to function in that moment. You are so distressed that to expect you to carry on with normal day-to-day activities would be impossible. And I wonder just how much training is needed, both for, you know, us as parents, for teachers, for just people in the community, for faith groups. I'm gonna bring safeguarding in a little bit here. What I'd like to do, I'm going to come to you, Sara, and ask, because I feel like you've got a question or comment. How do our transgender community fit within safeguarding? What's needed? Because we're aware now there are some complex issues. They are clearly, these guests, they are not feeling safe everywhere in their day-to-day lives, in places we would expect them to feel safe. Once I come to you, I want to ask about the safety around using binders, because that seems to be something that can be quite controversial. So I'd like to maybe dispel a few myths around that, if that's okay. Sara, what are you thinking? Sara, you're muted at the moment. This is when we do a Radio Free Mormon impression. You're muted.
Radio Free Mormon is over. I'm now unmuted. I'm thinking a lot of things at the moment, an awful lot of things, because everything we've been hearing is incredibly powerful. And I'm really grateful that we've got the opportunity to do this and have this discussion. I think we need to be really clear that our transgender community are a vulnerable group. And it's really frustrating that they are a vulnerable group, because what makes our transgender community vulnerable are the attitudes of society. And that's problematic. Because we have homophobic, transphobic, because we have all these problematic attitudes and problematic values and beliefs within our society, particularly within religion, particularly within high demand religion, and probably some parts of the country are probably more problematic than others. You know, there's going to be geographical and all kind of cultural differences. But what is frustrating is that we have a group of majority views and attitudes that are forcing a vulnerability upon another group of people. Because you shouldn't need to be vulnerable if you're trans. You know, we should have this. It's okay. What's the problem? What's the problem? Let's all just do what we're doing. Let's live our lives. Let's be who we are. Let's express who we are. Let's live our lives as who we are. And when majority attitudes are preventing that, we've got a problem as a society. So that really concerns me. The other bit that hugely concerns me is the level of hate crime that trans people are experiencing. We've got Landon talking about just the experience of trying to go to school every day and being hate crimed every day. That is completely unacceptable. It's completely not okay. And the difficulty with it is, why is it not being recognised as a cause of significant multiple trauma? Because when you're being hate crimed every day of your life, everywhere you go, then that is, each time it's adding another layer of that trauma. And it's that then increases vulnerability to poor mental health, vulnerability to self-harm, vulnerability to struggling with your own identity and image of yourself and how you feel about yourself, and vulnerability to feeling safe, to go into society and joining community activities, education, employment, relationships, and all the things that people should be able to do. So what we really have at the core of the vulnerability of our trans community, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm coughing rather a lot tonight. We've got attitudes that are causing this harm. The other sort of vulnerability that really concerns me is physical health. Excuse me. Physical health is a major problem. And one of the things that I wanted to ask Landon, if you're not okay answering this question, Landon, just tell me, move on. But I'm really concerned about how you access healthcare and your experience of that. Just normal healthcare. You go to the doctors, you've got a cough, you've got a sore throat, you've got a poorly big toe. How do you access healthcare? In a safe way?
So I don't really, at the moment, have much. It's already difficult with post-COVID. You don't really, around here, it's so backlogged that I've not been getting, to the dentist to do anything. I've not seen like a dentist in years. So normally I don't have to be worried. But when I have been to the hospital and stuff, even being in a space like that, there's a lot of misgendering, and you feel uncomfortable because you think these are people who are supposed to be able to help you with things, and then trying to get gender affirming healthcare is a completely different problem where the lists are so long, and everyone ends up having to save up money and go private with it, which is where I'm going to end up because it's already been a couple of years and I don't see it freeing up space anytime soon. So I'm really relying on myself for any kind of that stuff.
And that again is a massive way of increasing vulnerability, isn't it? If people can't access healthcare safely. The other bit that greatly alarms me, and we've known about this for some time, is this problem with bills that are going through Parliament and this problem with pressure around schools having to talk to parents and having to talk to guardians, because what we're actually saying to some of our kids that are incredibly vulnerable is you might not be able to talk to your parents about this because your parents or family might not be okay with this, but neither can you now talk to a safe person in school. So where are our trans kids going to go for help? Fantastic for the ones that have Jane as a mum, but not everyone does. So where are our trans kids going to be able to talk to somebody for support, for help, to be able to just process what's going on for themselves? If school is shut down because the message gets out there that this isn't safe, if you're even thinking or questioning we're going to have to talk to your parents, then you can't even have a conversation with somebody to kind of say, do you know what, I'm just thinking about this, just wondering about this, don't really know what I think, don't really know what I feel. You can't even have that exploratory discussion with somebody in safety. And that is incredibly dangerous. And then you put all those vulnerabilities together, like difficulty in accessing healthcare, continuous hate crime that isn't being resolved, isn't being treated, lack of professional support, not being able to talk to safe adults because those doors have been closed. Well, actually, the risks to the trans community then, and our trans young people very particularly, the risks to them of being exploited and abused by people around them is significantly increased.
Absolutely.
Significantly increased because believe me, sex offenders, groomers, exploitation traffickers will identify that vulnerability and will know how to exploit and use it. So it's really concerning that we're blocking off access to support in every avenue, education, health, every avenue. We're blocking off that access to support, and in attitudes are increasing vulnerability. And why are we not dealing with hate crime? Why are we not dealing with it?
Absolutely. I'm going to jump onto this, hopefully I'll be able to read it to you. Some statistics and facts from the Centre for Suicide Prevention. This is a US organization. Somewhere up to 43% is estimated, and these are older stats, of transgender people have attempted suicide in their lifetime. 10% of trans people report recently attempting suicide within the previous year. Trans people are twice as likely to think about and attempt suicide than the rest of the LGBTQ community. And 2/3 of trans youth report that they have self-harmed as a way to cope. We know that we're going to talk about clothing too, because that's really important, but we know that when someone is using the correct pronouns, the pronouns that are preferred for someone who is trans, that this risk of suicide goes from being, it's horrific, more likely that they're going to die by suicide than they're going to live. It's, I mean, not even just more likely that they're gonna, you know, die for a whole host of functions. It's more likely that they're going to take their lives than they're going to live, and that horrifies me. And it was one of the first things that we were sort of aware as Landon came into our lives, that there is serious risk to us losing this child here, and this needs to be taken care of as a health issue as well as a mental health issue, and just sort of coping in the world. When someone's pronouns are respected and used, that risk goes down to almost normal. You become on par with the same risk as the rest of the population of dying by suicide. And that, I think, tells us so much about what we need to know about why it's important to use pronouns. That even if that part of you that hasn't quite got there in your mind yet, if you just don't quite understand, but you're gonna respect someone's pronouns, it's a life-saving thing. So that's something that I wanted to emphasize, and just to honor those people who are part of our community that we haven't been that safe space for. Talk to me a little bit about, just because it came up, it's a controversial subject. Talk to me about binders. I have a friend who had mentioned there's a charity called Mermaids, which is a really great charity which offers, in my experience, which offers training, information for both adults, professionals, and children and young people who may have questions or needs around transgender issues. If you feel that you're trans, it's a resource that you're quite often signposted to, and I believe it's a really good resource. But I remember a friend of mine sort of saying that they felt it was really, really worrying. It's not a healthy place to go because they encourage young people to bind their chests. Now, could you talk a little bit about some of those myths, Leon? Why it's important, why it could be considered a bad thing. Talk to me a little bit about binders.
So binders can be both. They can be dangerous. I will admit them. They can be dangerous if used wrong. Note the word wrongly. So if you get your first binder and it's too small, you're going to do some serious damage to your chest tissue and to your ribs and to your internal organs. So if used wrong, dangerous. But if used right and done in... So the way I got told, and I went to an older friend that was trans when I first started binding, is you wear it for 20 minutes a day for the first week. So you do it in segments. You work up to wearing it for a full 8-hour day at school or at work or wherever. So if you go out and wear it for 8 hours straight off, you're going to do some serious damage to your ribs and cause serious breathing issues. Idiot here did that and couldn't breathe for like a week properly because I'd done so much damage that I bruised my ribs. So yeah. I've done it. I've gone down the wrong way. I binded for 10 hours at work in a warehouse and caused myself having to have 2-3 weeks off work to recover. So they can be dangerous if used wrong. If used right and under, I don't really want to say adult supervision, but if you're a younger person, get someone that you trust. If you've got someone that you trust, and be like, listen, I want to start binding. Help me to find the right information. Obviously, if you don't have that, you can go to the internet and read all the wrong things that are on the internet, because Dr. Google isn't always right, people. But yeah, go to a trusted website. There's GC2B. There's there's other websites that medically trained people make the binders.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting.
Just don't go buy one off Amazon. Do not buy binders off Amazon. Do not buy a binder off Amazon. I love Amazon. I will buy in for everything else, but the sizes are too small. They are made for small. Yeah. They're not made for fat people. I'm going to say this. I'm a fat person. I ordered my normal, because they tell you to order your normal bra size. What would be your normal bra size? So I ordered my normal bra size. It was 2 sizes too small.
Do you mind me asking why wouldn't a sports bra have that? I mean, couldn't you use a sports bra, go down a size? Would that?
No. Same issue. You're going to cause breathing issues. Also, don't double up on sports bras. Don't do it. Just don't. There was a method that I found when I first started where you put one on and then put the other one on backwards. And it has the same effect as binders. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. If I catch anyone I know do it, I'm going to cut the bras off myself. I will take the processes.
This is what's so helpful, and I think that this is what the resource, like having that safe place to go. Now, I'm using Mermaids, the organisation, as an example, because they do have this information that if you're going to use a binder, these are the risks, and how you do it safely is this way. Now, ideally, like you say, there's someone safe who could explain that to you. The problem is, often, we don't have a background, and I don't really know what bind. I mean, so Landon, was with us for a very, very short while, and had just, mentioned binder, like just what would be the possibility around this. And I'm having to check. I'm like, okay, I think it might be this, but I don't want to assume. Are we talking about stationery? Do you need like, you mean like a folder binder, or like, let's be specific. And anyway, yes. So we had to be educated. Landon, talk to us a little bit about the safety around binders.
So binders are obviously the safe option for binding. Like, people would use bandages and that, and they're not always affordable. That's dangerous. Yeah. I've never binded with anything but a binder. I'm wearing mine right now. And I've never attempted anything else, and I wouldn't, because I've got a big fear around permanent damage. But that being said, I'm someone who kind of pushes the rules of wearing a binder, because school days for me are normally 9 hours long. I'm up sometimes between 5 and 6 a.m. And then I don't get home until around 5 p.m. sometimes. And by that point, I've been wearing a binder for so long that day that it's genuinely a risk. But school clothes, they're not flattering they won't help, they won't hide anything. So it's, especially in this heat, it's so warm. What was it, like 27 degrees, and I was in school in a binder, and I had to leave the room because the room I was in was maybe like 30 degrees. It was so warm. And I'd been wearing this tight binder since 6 a.m. and it was like 2 p.m. and I was struggling to breathe, and I hadn't drank anything since like 6 a.m. So it was dreadful. But then when you go to get help saying, I need to take this binder off for a minute, the teacher doesn't understand what that is. And so she thinks it's just like you undoing your bra clasp a little and putting it down to a lower setting, when in fact I need this fully off for a wee while. But didn't go through her head. And so I had to immediately just put it back on and go right back to that room and wait for another hour for school to finish. So when I do my binding, it's not always the safest. And when I try to get help for it, it doesn't always actually end up helpful to me in any way.
Trans tape is an option. So if you've got smaller breasts, trans tape is a thing. Doesn't work on big boobs. Sorry, guys. You have to be like, I I think it's C cup or smaller, and you essentially tape your boob round and up. So you're like, not obviously going to shave my boob, but you tape it up here, like under your armpit. So you can't tell that you've got breasts and it flattens your chest the same way. But same issues, same, wear it sensibly, don't wear it for 10 hours a day.
And I think there's a real issue again, back to the accessibility of healthcare, is how do you, if you feel that you have injured yourself through wearing a binder, or you feel that something is not right, you're struggling to breathe, you're in pain, you've taken it off, you're still in pain, you're struggling, how do you access healthcare if you feel you're going to be judged or criticised or simply told don't do that again?
You don't, you lie.
You know, so I think that becomes really problematic as well. Right.
I lied.
Okay. And so there we've got another huge problem, haven't we? How can you be completely kind of open with the GP or health service anywhere if you feel that you're not going to be understood and you're going to be judged for it? And they're going to just say, well, the problem's simple. This is causing you breathing difficulties. This is causing you pain. Don't wear it.
Just to wear it.
Because it doesn't work like that. So that's...
Actually, Sarah, what you're saying is, you know, I think this is where training, especially, you know, I'm thinking about young people because that's what we're experiencing right now. That we're teachers to be trained, shooting the messenger that is, you know, an organisation, you know, for providing healthcare information about how to do something safely is probably not helpful. It's not putting ideas into kids' heads. You know, when we had when Leon and Landon had it, because, you know, we're friends, and of course Landon's in our lives, and Leon introduces, you know, if you need to talk to someone, if you need advice on binders or any of those kind of things, and, you know, someone who can be a trusted person, that is so helpful. What is, you know, unfortunately, the fears that many of us have around the whole idea, oh my goodness, we don't want you talking about binders, or you're putting it into our kids' heads. And that's not what's happening. Kids are unable to access this healthcare. It seems really obvious, you know, for example, what you're talking about, Landon, you haven't had a drink for you know, since 6 a.m. So have a drink. You're not going to get so hot. And but everything that you're physically experiencing, from starting with the dysphoria, you're doing all of these things to mitigate it, but you also, you know, we are super aware that you're dehydrating yourself so that you don't have to go through that terrible experience of having to use bathrooms in a school day that brings up all of that stuff, you know, that encourages UTIs and the sort of health risks around that, the wearing of a binder. I mean, these things seem so simple. Ask for a drink, take it off, but without understanding what it is you're actually experiencing, without asking you, how are we going to make those changes?
And actually, in a school set, just that you're in a school setting, how are you going to go about telling a particular teacher that is what's happening for you, and that's the issue, if that teacher has dead named you, misgendered you, or ignored hate crime that's gone on in front of their eyes to you? You know, how do you then go to that person for help? Which is another huge problem around safeguarding our trans kids, isn't it? How do we do that if we're not actually showing in some way that, you know what, I hear hate crime, I'm getting in there, I'm dealing with it, I'm not tolerating it? How do we safeguard if we're not doing that?
Sara, I'm going to come back again in a minute to a bit of expertise that you have, or some, you know, a few things we were talking about last week as we were having a chat. Landon, just to sort of close out the section, I'd like both you and Leon to talk about clothing sort of out with binders, and how any sort of barriers to, you know, that you find there. Particularly for you, Landon, I'm aware that the school uniform is an issue. So would you speak a little bit about just what the expectations are of you?
So my expectations are that I'm to wear full school uniform all the time in school. That's the expectations for everyone. That also, currently, you're not allowed any hoodies in the school, or anything that zips up with a hood. You're not supposed to wear that in school. But I, especially recently, have been struggling to wear any kind of uniform. Usually, like, I've been wearing a skirt, but that doesn't work most of the time. And then the uniform, it's even when you get boy fit stuff, you have big thighs and you have hips, and that's going to show. So you can't hide that just because it's boy fit unless it's super, super baggy, which they also don't like you wearing. They want you to look smart and proper. And so then I turn up to school in, you know, a really baggy shirt and jeans and something thrown over top that's also really baggy to like hide my shape more, and I get into trouble, and I get people commenting on it and telling me that, you know, you should be wearing your uniform right now. And it's either I wear this stuff and not a binder that day so that I can actually let my ribs recover, or I don't wear this, but I wear a binder all week and probably permanently damage my ribs and my breathing. So it's not, there's no winning for that situation at all.
Thank you for sharing. I remember I'm experiencing teaching staff as I'm interacting with them as a guardian that who are, you know, supportive and saying, you know, saying all the right things, and just looking for guidance and information, where what really needs to happen is they need to have training, they need to have ongoing training, and actually things need to happen for the entirety of the school to help people understand what your experience is and that of other transgender kids. But you know, I do remember that comment just the other week, you know, well, you know, Landon, you know, wore a skirt the other day, or Landon was, you know, looked very smart the other day. Like, you know, the other day is a very different day. So I think that's where training would be really helpful. So I still have a crap ton of questions, but now I want to bring some Mormonism in before I ask some more questions about pride flags, neo-pronouns, drag queens. Let's bring the Mormons in before we do that. Leon, where does Mormonism sit with you?
Where does Mormonism? Oh, the joys. So I got baptized at the age of 19, so I wasn't born and raised into a church. My parents hated church, so I just went for the walls.
That's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? So we're talking about the big
church.
Brigham tradition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I hadn't heard about the church until I was 18, when I met a random member on the street who helped fix my bike. So I got baptized at 19. Kind of lied in my baptismal interview about being gay.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to be like, I lied about my age, or you lied about being gay. Yeah, that'll do it.
I lied about being gay. Didn't tell anyone I was gay, because I was like, I asked someone, and like, yeah, you would have to be interviewed by the mission president. Like, it was a whole separate interview back then. I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Did you
know you were gay at that point?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I'd known for years. I just hadn't come out to anyone.
Oh, right. Okay. That makes sense.
So my family aren't the best. But we're getting better. Not that there's a grandchild involved. We're getting a lot better. But when I was younger, my family weren't the greatest towards LGBTQ people. So I didn't come out. But yeah, so lied in my interview questions lasted 4 years, 19, 20, 21. Lasted 3 years in the church before I left. Because of various things. Oh, why didn't I leave? Abuse.
Okay.
From sperm donor, who was a priesthood member. I'm very out about this. Mm-hmm. I've told thousands of people, don't trust them.
I'm really sorry that happened, Landon. Leon, I'm so sorry that that's been your experience in church. I mean, the first thing you say is abuse. You equate it with abuse. Obviously, it will be great to take a really deep dive into your story and experiences. But when you join the church at that stage, there is immediately the binary. So you're not in primary with everyone else, where sort of there's this, at least it's a sort of, you know, all genders are included in that space. Young women's, young men's, relief society and priesthood. Yeah. So how did
1 week of young women's. I did 1 week of young women's because I was 18 when I first started going, and the only reason I got to go to young women's was because my sister missionaries were teaching that lesson. Like, we can't really just throw you into a whole room of people that you don't know. I was like, yeah, please don't. I will have an anxiety attack if you do that. Please don't. And then I was straight into Relief Society and learning how to be a good mom and a good wife and how I should prepare myself to be an eternally good housewife. And I honestly sat at the back of all of my lessons on my phone, on Facebook.
Right.
Because, like, I was never going to become a parent. I now have a child.
Yeah.
But yes, it was traumatic, to say the least.
That's what's happening, externally. You're on your phone, but
Yeah.
mentally that must have been really. I mean, I have experienced those lessons and wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I found it so disturbing. I can't even imagine what that's like for you.
It's fairness.
And 3 years of that. That's a long
3-4
time.
years. I left when I got pregnant with small human because I was like, I am not raising a child in this religion. I wanted out before she was born. I didn't want to get her a blessing. I didn't want, the shame of being a single mom. Because we know single moms get that shame. We know single parents get that look when they walk into church with kids with no husband.
Oh, we all want. If you're comfortable to let's take a deep dive. If you'd be happy to do it, and we'll do a follow-up chat because we have so many questions. Landon, when you realize you're a transgender child and you go to live with a Mormon family, well, like I'm the only Mormon in the family, but as the boss of it, so you go to live with your really strict Mormon aunt. That should have been pretty horrific. Tell me what you were experiencing of Mormonism.
So obviously when I first came here, I wasn't really expecting you to be a person to force me into going to church or that. Like, I don't know, I just wouldn't expect that from you. And I'm spiritual anyway. I like going to churches. I don't mind what one, as long as it's a nice place and they're saying nice things. But then actually going to church with you, and it's very scary. The men will come up and shake your hand really firmly, and it's a bit like, pal, you don't have to like break my hand for this. I see you as the alpha male right now. It's fine. Temptation just to sweat up your hands beforehand and just you don't want to do that again. And then you'd have people standing up and the things they'd say. I don't know, when people are bearing their testimonies and that, sometimes you think, oh, that's what you're getting from some of these like teachings and that. That's really unhealthy. That's, oh my goodness. And then I'm trying to be respectful while also trying to like get on my phone and not have to listen to some of these people saying some really sad things. And you're like, no one's helping you right now. No one's like doing the right thing right now. Or when people would come up and I'd sit with you and they were doing the teachings and that, and they're sat there saying some really problematic things, and I'm sat there like, is no one else seeing this? No one else is seeing this.
So when Landon first came to live, right, I remember. I think someone thought they were going to like get into a Twitter fight with me. I just remember this moment where we were talking about what the experience was going to be like. Okay, you're here. We go to church. There's a lot of Mormon immersion, even if you are not engaging with it at all. There's no expectation. There's no, because I recognize that this is potentially really harmful for you, but you may hear some stuff, and you may have, if you want to go to church, it is there for you, but we need to sort of protect you because you've already had these really traumatic experiences, and further rejection is not going to be great for you right now. So we sat down. My Twitter sort of post started that we sat down with my trans kid and started to go through For the Strength of Youth. And like Twitter was ready to get its earrings out, and I was like, no, it's okay to talk about the things that this is not what we teach in our home. This is not how we see this in our home. because I think that sort of that core message of the binary, the binary of what relationships should look like, what chastity, what sexual development looks like, all of those things that could potentially cause further harm to this specific child. So we did that, and I was serving as a young women counsellor at the time, fantastic Relief Society Young Women's president, and so we during COVID, Young Women's is happening on the laptop, so you would get to come in and experience a little bit about that. So when you're talking about the things, it's been a while since Landon has experienced Young Women's. Young Men's was never an option. Your gender wasn't really ever affirmed or acknowledged in anything other than a sort of binary way. But I do remember, the Young Women's theme that we would recite together was one of the really problematic things. We are daughters of our heavenly parents. And so what I would do whenever it was either my turn to say it or whenever Landon was saying it, is we just change it to we are children of our heavenly parents, or I'm a child of our heavenly parents. But I don't think there was much in the way of discussion about what could actually be done to affirm or support you. Did you find it fun? Did you like the Young Women's interaction, or was it just a kind of switch off time?
It was all right. I feel like I'm a lot, back then especially, very socially awkward with the girls. So there was a bit of a disconnect for me, very shy, mostly sticking to myself. But I liked being included in it. I do like being included in things like that because I do like the environment usually. Because I'm not picky on my on anything like that.
And I think also you were the first really openly queer person that the ward had got to experience. And so although you've been quite sort of protected from what the ward community is really going to look like immersively, there are other queer kids now, which is, out queer kids, which is fantastic to see. Okay, I am going to jump to, because we have this fantastic comment, our friend of the show, your son came out as omnisexual.
Oh my
the other
goodness.
day.
Let's go.
Okay, tell us, educate us, Landon, omnisexual.
Right, omnisexual. People compare it to pansexual. Pansexual is basically you see no gender, you don't care. You just like who you like. Omnisexual, from what I know, because my sexuality is so fluid that I switch between multi-sexualities, like pan, like bi, like omni. So my experience of omnisexual is that you don't mind, you like all genders, but you have a favorite. Like, I like all of these things, but you're my favorite. So if I were to say that, it's like, I don't have a preference for what person, what gender, any of that. But I especially like if you're a bit more masculine type thing. And it's so interesting and I love it. And the flag is really cute as well.
Right. Okay, we're going to talk about flags in a second. Right. So explain to me. Now, I try to keep conversations about sexuality far, 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 far away from talking about being trans, because you guys get sexualized and so much, and the conversations, rather than it be about your gender, become about your sex lives. And so we're not gonna entertain that. But since we're having this conversation about being omnisexual, okay, isn't that just the same thing then as, does that come under the bisexual umbrella?
So the bisexual, right, in the LGBTQIA acronym, the bisexual is an umbrella. It's the umbrella for the multi-sexual thing, which includes omni, pan, bi, and polysexual as the main ones that I can list off the top of my head.
You can't list them all?
I
Landon?
know.
Oh my
I
God,
wish.
I think you've just
I
listed all of these already. Oh my goodness. Okay, so then what about so leaving that for the moment to come back again, because we're going to talk about flags. Tell me about neopronouns.
Right, neopronouns. So like they them was the non-binary, you're not she her, you're not he him. That's the more, I hate to say it, that's the more binary of the non-binaries. Neopronouns are what like less widely used. Neopronouns are still pretty obscure. That's not to say they've not been used as commonly as other sets of pronouns. I think neopronouns have existed alongside other sets of pronouns as they've gone along. But neopronouns tend to be like the most common one you'll hear maybe is Zizar.
Yeah.
That's a common one these days.
So that looks like Z-E
Yeah.
/ Z-E-I-R.
Z-I-R, actually.
Z-I-R.
Well, the one I use
okay.
anyway, but I think there's different spellings. That's why it's so difficult. Like, so I have currently 9 sets of pronouns, and only 2 of them are the binary ones. The rest of them non-binary. So that includes ones like it. People don't like using it pronouns on me because they feel like they're, taking away my humanity. But, when it's a thing I feel, it's a thing I feel.
Yeah.
But neopronouns are essentially just wider non-binary pronouns.
Mm-hmm. So because I remember when that was one of the pronouns that you told me that you preferred. Yeah, that was both a concern because I didn't want to dehumanize you, but I also didn't want to sound like I was a serial killer from Silence of the Lamb. It is in its room eating its food. It just sounds so horrific. But if that's your pronoun, that's what I got to respect. And yeah, my feelings or weirdness or the movies I've watched really don't get to inform that. Okay. Anything else about neopronouns that we need to know? Do we actually need them? Is it just like, all of you Gen Z kids? Doesn't matter. Can't we just stick to them?
I feel like people will make up. There's different subsets of like the queer community, and sometimes there are people who will make new pronouns that are there to make fun of the community. So neopronouns tend to be a bit of a joke right now in the community because other people will be using things like cat / cat self, which I'm like, okay, I see this and I raise you. Are you about to get us all double hate crimed with what you're doing right now? Because this is like a bit more, whoa, is this part of the queer community? Is this what we're going into now? Or is this more of a fetish thing? Sorry.
Right.
Which is
because I remember you having these experiences quite a few times actually, where for example I would bump into you in the hall one morning and you'd be like, I've got a new pronoun, and it's the sense of understanding about this aspect of yourself, and I have this word for what I am right now. Fair, I think was one, and there's a huge list. That if that's how you can express you, that must be so empowering. So yeah, I need to do much better about using them.
There was an article in it came up on my Facebook feed in a newspaper the other day about a secondary school that had given kids forms and families to fill in for when they kind of started school in September, and they had 42 pronouns on there that they were asking kids to choose from, and parents and everybody was actually were going mad. They were kind of really complaining about this. They're like, 42 pronouns. Hey, come on, surely we can live with they, them, but come on, what are these 42 pronouns? Most of them I had never heard of because And I'm thinking, oh, never heard that, never heard that, never heard that. Most of them I hadn't heard of. But it was really interesting. This one school was trying to say, okay, tell us, and you're starting school with us in September, so tell us what your pronoun is. And here's a list of 42.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just another example of how that's been perceived by parents and the community negatively.
We found a hairdresser, trying to find somewhere that will work with what Landon needs and not have that sort of binary expectation. We had found a hairdresser who, you know, we've been mermaids trained, and when you book, select your pronouns, and there's this huge big drop down list, and you know, they're providing their pronouns so that you know what to expect. They prefer. I mean, if businesses did that, can you imagine if churches actually?
Well, we can't even get to. Oh, come on, we can't even get to they and them, can we?
Well, let's come back and we'll talk about the religion-y sort of side of things. But first of all, I want to ask about. Let's ask about, guys, tell me, what do I need to know about pride flags? Because we have so many. You know, the one in the middle on the top is for our audio listeners only. The one in the middle is a traditional rainbow pride flag. But if we scroll down, there are another couple. I know there are more out there than this, but the one in the bottom row middle is the newest pride flag, is that right? Or the more updated one?
Sex inclusive progress pride flag.
Okay, so who wants to tell me this first one? We've got basically rainbow colours, but there's quite a lot within that spectrum. The Gilbert Baker pride flag. This is, anyone want to, who is Gilbert Baker, and why is that flag up there?
Do you know? I don't know who Gilbert Baker is.
Don't know who that is. Is that the first pride flag though?
Have we lost Leon from the stream? So as soon as Leon's back, we'll grab Leon. I think something just. I think we've had possibly a little technical issue with Leon. But what we have there is okay. If I mouse over it, okay. So it's a Gilbert Baker flag, and that's the original pride flag that was created in 1978 after activist Harvey Milk, and we've got Leon back. Thank goodness, because it's just not the same without you.
Oh, Gilbert Baker. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was the original pride flag that was designed. Each colour represents a different part of the LGBTQ community. Hot pink represents sex, red symbolises life, orange stands for healing, yellow equals sunlight, green stands for nature, turquoise symbolises magic and art, indigo represents serenity, while violet symbolises the spirit of LGBTQ people. Awesome. This one in the middle, the traditional pride flag, this is the one that you two conspired together to steal from the Christians. Is that right?
Oh,
is that what happened?
That's what happened.
So hold on, I'm just gonna. I think we're having like still a little. Oh, we have got you, Leon. That's good.
We've got Leon back.
Let's try this again. Yeah, because it was looking a little bit weird there. Okay, yeah. So, the rainbow flag. Did you steal it directly from Noah, or did you take a more circuitous route to do it? This flag gives me joy. So the traditional pride flag is after the assassination of Harvey Milk, the rainbow flag was in high demand. So the hot pink stripe was removed, the turquoise stripe was removed, and the 6-colour pride flag has represented the community for over 40 years, and it's the most common.
Yeah.
But I want to ask about this middle. So this one at the bottom, right? This is the progress pride flag, and I noticed that the trans colours are in there, the white, pink, and blue. So yeah, you guys made progress. You made it into the pride flag, which is awesome. So why was a new one needed? Because this one here in the middle is the intersex inclusive progress pride flag. Tell me how do the pride flags and the variety of them, how do they represent you? How do you connect with them, and why is it important to for there to have even been a new one, because the rainbow one existed?
I think it's just a visibility. Like, you can visibly see the trans flag as part of
Yeah.
the queer community when you do that. You don't, when people see the rainbow flag, I think everyone goes to sexuality rather than
Yes.
gender. And so I like seeing that. And then obviously you've got the other couple colors on it, which are inclusive towards, you know, people of color and everyone who else like struggles to be seen in their communities. So it's really important to acknowledge that there are other parts of the community, like intersex people. People always assume, you know, male, female, that's all. You don't acknowledge intersex people. Intersex people exist.
Yeah.
You cut that out because you have your own narrative and you don't want to be bothered explaining that, no, there is another group of people that I'm just going to like roll over right now because they're not part of what I'm trying to tell you.
And am I right in saying it is a bit of an issue, not just in society, but also within the LGBTQ community, that trans rights aren't always acknowledged? Leon, do you have anything that you're thinking? You're on mute, Radio Free Leon. We've almost got you. It might be that is your mic, perhaps. Hold on, let me just see. Yeah, because you're not showing that you're muted, but there's possibly something going on with your mic. Even if you want to try logging out and logging back in again, we'll see if we've got your audio back. Yeah. Let's try then. If I maybe direct that question to you, Landon, is it something, do you feel included by the whole LGBTQ community?
No, you'll see, especially amongst like gay men and stuff. You'll see a lot of disconnect between, you know, we're the outsiders of the outsiders community. I think especially, like, I'm obviously trans masculine, I'm not trans feminine. But trans women and trans feminine people, they are the people most likely. I think, what was it? We saw statistics on this when we watched the documentary Disclosure, and they are like disproportionately, like, they're getting so much more hate crime, trans women are, than any other part of the community, because people just cannot understand and they see them as a threat. And so I feel so strongly towards including my trans sisters in everything about the community, because they deserve all the love in the world.
Absolutely. Leon, I think we might have your audio back. Have you got any thoughts you'd like to share about the LGBTQ community in general? We gotcha.
Yes, thank God for that. My internet's playing up. Sorry, y'all.
That's absolutely fine. We do this every week, and our internet is sometimes a potato. So yes, it's good.
Been a long day. Poor internet's worked hard. I think what Landon said's spot on. Like, we go to Pride and we get hate crime even from the community. And it's just like, we're supposed to be one people fighting for the same thing. Hello. And you just want to punch people and knock some sense into them. But also, that would also be a hate crime to them, sadly. But yeah, it happens. And I think it goes on where you are in the world. It gets better or it gets worse. It is definitely geographical. And you just have to keep fighting. And to the point where I've seen trans pride, just trans prides happening, because trans people don't feel safe at normal prides.
So, as I said, we're heading off to Pride Edinburgh this weekend, where we'll be, shouting out for all of our, especially within the restoration traditions, where there's been and Christian community where, it's just horrific. Where this hasn't been the space that it is needed to be. So we'll be thinking about you all. I wanted to ask about what things, and I feel like what I'm going to do is come back and ask you, whenever, Leon, we maybe do a deep dive, I'd like to talk about parenting and what that looks like for your family just now. But if we sort of move towards closing out as we prepare to go to Pride, and I'm thinking about how we can be a better ally. Naturally, we sit in this podcasting space. Would you speak, first of all, Leon, to what is it that your faith looks like just now, and what an affirming faith could look like? What a gender affirming faith could look like?
I love this question because I'm in a gender affirming church. So
where'd you find one of those?
I know it's a rare one. It's a golden egg. Yeah, and it's an amazing church, and I love it. And if it wasn't for them, I wanted to come out when I did, I probably would very much still be in a closet. But yeah, so it's part of the Restoration. It's part of the Mormonism church. It's an off branch called what used to be RLDS, so what does it stands for something else, but it's not. They now go by Community of Christ, and their main principles are worth of all persons, which means everyone's loved, everyone's included. They're making active progress to make sure everyone's included. To gay people holding the priesthood, they also let women hold the priesthood, just as a shocker. But yeah, they affirm. I think I'd gone 1 week as my birth name because, you didn't want to go straight in there and be like, hey, I'm trans, because you didn't know what the church is going to be like. But within 2-3 weeks, I was on as Leon, using he, him pronouns, and there was slip-ups. I bless this one lady was like, I think you're logged on as someone else. And I was like, no, I've come out as trans. I'm like, oh my God, we're sorry. And that was it.
So I remember meeting, so I've only ever known you as Leon, but I remember meeting Community of Christ for the first time at a Sunstone Glasgow event. And I mean, so I had always heard of Community of Christ as like, are they the edgy, fringy, like polygamy? No, right. So this was when the Brighamite church, when the church headed off with Brigham, the people who didn't, so
we
like,
stayed with
I refer to it as Emma's church and Joseph's son reorganized, and it's now today become Community of Christ, and they went through this huge period of figuring out dealing with the demons of their past, like polygamy, what do we do about women in the priesthood, and all of that stuff happens. So they've wrestled already with all of the questions that Latter-day Saints just haven't touched as an organization. And so we sit in that really unhealthy space where we just don't talk about it. When I met the gang at Sunstone, I remember they are so dear to us as a faith. They're definitely a spiritual home for a lot of us 21st century saints. I remember asking Richard Barrington, who's a 70 in Community of Christ, can you explain about about being gay in Community of Christ? And he's like, it just was like such a that's a question, and he's like, well, you don't have to be gay. you can come if you're not. And we were like, oh my goodness, and they are funny. So yeah, it's such an inclusive. They have an inclusion hymn, Leon. They have a freaking inclusion hymn.
We do. It's called For Everyone Born, and it's gone through changes over the years, obviously, because it wasn't originally, but it's everyone born a place at the table, and it goes through verses like man and woman, and then they've put on a verse that's got queer and straight, trans, and it's essentially saying, we don't care who you are, come and sit with us.
And you're acknowledged in a hymn. You're seen in oh wow. Sorry, Sara.
Just a little tiny thing, just to add to all of that amazing stuff that you said that we know to be so true of Community of Christ. They will bless marriages of gay people.
They will marry.
And I think that's really important. Yeah. It's not just that you can be gay. It's just not that you can hold the priesthood. It's just not that you can serve. It's just not that you can be gay safely. And I think that's a really important word, that you can be gay or trans safely. Going
on the country.
Yeah,
because obviously we obey the law of the land.
And I think we need to be acknowledge if you're a community Christ in Uganda, it'd still be phenomenally dangerous.
Yeah.
So there's problems there, obviously. But in countries where the law allows, you can be married, which is absolutely fantastic from a church that kind of just would not even entertain that. To know that you can hang out at Community Christ and kind of, you wouldn't be scared of falling in love. You wouldn't be praying not to fall in love with somebody because of how complicated and difficult it would get. You would be knowing if you did fall in love with somebody, it would be okay. And that to me, that's the biggest stark difference for me, is if you're gay in the Bighamite tradition, the LDS church, then you would spend your life praying you're not going to fall in love with somebody. If you go in Community of Christ,
you pray that you
fall in love with somebody, you know they're going to celebrate with you and be there at your wedding and bless it. And being trans it's just okay. You know, you don't see trans people being treated any differently. It's kind of pretty cool.
So the holy envy that I have, though, is that you also you're not just accepted, because just being accepted is huge. That is one of the most incredible things that can happen. But being affirmed, you can have aspirations, you can have, so there are not only leadership opportunities. Could you talk about the leadership in the church and how that's reflective of the LGBTQ community, and also what leadership opportunities are open to you?
You can do anything. You can be a 70. You can hold the priesthood. You can give blessings. You can do everything. And no, I don't want to say normal. So
as plain boring cisgender people can do. Yeah.
So you can do anything that in the LDS church you wouldn't have been able to do. Wow. So I can, as a trans man, I can go and get the priesthood. Whereas in the LDS church, I'm not even allowed in priesthood meetings.
Oh.
Which sucks. Oh. But yeah, I can go and be 70. I can go and be prophet if I wanted to be, if the people so choose.
Right, exactly. And there are LGBTQ members of the LGBTQ community in Community of Christ leadership. Is that right?
As far as I think.
I'm thinking about Laurie Lee Hall. Laurie Lee Hall is one of the apostles, right? Yes,
I didn't know,
and she's a trans woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she came from a restoration background in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, was designing temples, and was, a lot of responsibility and expectation. And she has found, a faith where she's able to fully experience and lead and be listened to. And it's just super inspiring. She's an incredible woman. Landon, what does faith look like for you at the moment? And I'm thinking about how it fits within the restoration. How does Mormonism touch your life at the moment? Specifically, do you get to go to church? Do you want to go to church?
I want to be able to go to church. Obviously, I do not go to church at the moment. I can. It's not exactly a safe space. I don't. There's obviously mass and that we can attend up the road and that, but it's different when I know that Mormon church is your church, and I'm wanting to be involved in that. But it's like I can't. It's not okay for me to be at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the what is really difficult is that when you have experienced going to church, there's the weirdness. We're all thinking the same thing, right? It's testimonies. It can be a bit of a roller coaster ride. So it's, all of that stuff happens, but it is your community. You are immersed in this community, and you are reached out to. When that happens with love, you have supportive conversations as people are asking you how you're doing. People are nice when you show up at church. But yeah, I had to say that no, church is not safe for you right now until we get these things ironed out. There's the possibility of Sara, do you want to jump in?
Do you know, I just wanted to say just two things. First of all, this is slightly irrelevant but important. Leon, any chance you can get the link for that hymn to everybody born up in the chat here for people, because I think it would be pretty cool for people to hear it. Yeah, I've put it on there, but then when I tried it, the link wasn't working, so I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to say is one of the saddest conversations that I've ever had with you, Jane, was when we had a little while ago when we spoke at huge length and hugely raw, vulnerable conversation about how there were members of our family that we did not want to take to church with us because we did not feel it was safe. And it was incredibly horrible talking about knowing that there were members, children in our families that we would not want to encourage or take to church because we did not believe they would be safe there. And it was a really hard conversation. And we've talked tonight about the difficulties of not being safe in school, in society, in many, many spaces where you're not safe if you're trans. But to not be safe with Christ's people in any faith community is an extra sadness.
I feel like one of the things that Latter-day Saints are probably not that aware of is that people who are what we would describe as TBM, those true believing Mormons who show up every Sunday and are loving and are welcoming and
and
you're sort of ticking all the social boxes. But when it comes to a discussion that you're having in Sunday school where things are reinforced from the pulpit or during the class that someone else that you don't even realize that you're doing when you're well-meaning, but if the question is presented to you, what are some of the biggest threats to the family today? And immediately it's got, we hear rhetoric around it's, the homophobic things are said, transphobic things are said. Let's bring the drag queens into it because the drag queens have suddenly now become this threat to humanity that they clearly have an agenda to brainwash all of our children, which it's just horrific. And I think it's even more bizarre in the United Kingdom. Either of you two guys want to give some thoughts about drag queens and how that's being used against you as a weapon?
Men in dresses shouldn't meet the children. Jesus sat there and read stories to children. He wore a dress.
I don't know. Drag, I've discovered drag through Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race. But I discovered that when I was still living with my mother, and she had very heavy opinions on Drag Race, on people in drag, and she could not stand that I was watching that, so I'd watch it really late at night when no one else was awake, and that was something I really, really enjoyed doing, because I want to be a drag queen. I see so much of how I want to express myself and how drag queens express themselves, and then obviously on the other side of stuff you've got drag kings, but people don't so much care about drag kings because it's not men or masculine people dressing up in female clothing. No, it's women just doing whatever. But that's the thing, it always ties back into trans women being so judged and hated in most communities, where you'll see that even drag queens face that same stigma of you're, probably a rapist who's going to come into the toilets and hurt women, which is so harming, and it hurts me. It boils my blood to hear whenever I hear people using those things against feminine, masculine people.
I mean, it's bizarre, I think, in the UK because it's normal to, we have a theatrical history of drag. It's super. In Victorian times, it was people would play with gender norms, and it just wasn't that threat. Now there's a threat.
There's photos of Brigham Young's son
Right.
dressed
Drag.
up in a drag.
Yep.
Yeah, there's photos that he was doing that as part of theatre and as drag. There's
Yeah.
images that
Madame
drives me.
Petterini. And not only Brigham Young's son, but Madame Petterini, which was the stage name. And because he lived as a man. This was purely a recreational thing.
Yeah.
Started the Young Men's Organisation. A drag queen started the Young Men's Organisation.
You know, and let's just recognise that can happen.
Yeah.
It happened, and we should get back to that. You know, that happening again today.
I think that's what
listening to what Landon said about what makes your blood boil when people just make these accusations.
Yeah.
It drives me to beyond insanity and to beyond losing every bit of shiz around me. It drives me to madness when people talk about sex offenders that have harmed a man, sex offender that has harmed a boy. Oh, it's because he's gay. No.
But what about the women
sex offender
traffickers that go into the bathrooms and kidnap kids? Because they're women, people think that they're safe. I would never let my child go into a bathroom unattended. Never.
No.
I don't give a crap
But
who's
it's
in
not. But it's nothing to do with people's sexuality because they're gay, because they're trans, because they're anything else like that at all.
Because straight people, 9
is-
out of 10, sex offenders are straight people.
100%. It is not. You know, and we get these people seem to think it's the two are all mixed up together, and they're not. It just makes me really. It's because it's so unfair. It's so judgmental. It's so insulting.
And I think the root of it comes from, you know, the transgender experience is what it looks like is it's the sting in the story, the sting in the tail, the twist, the all the time there is this sinister agenda that is either the butt of a joke or the hanging threat that the person who's actually out to harm you. It's rooted in such hate, and so defining any anti-trans speech as a hate crime. I would love for our church, particularly the Latter-day Saints community that we have experience of. I hear when I'm speaking to my husband about some of the things that have been said that day, and he points out, but you can be arrested for that if you said that in this. That's hate crime, and it's safe to say these things in church, and we congratulate you for it. This has been such a fascinating discussion, and if you guys are comfortable to come back and share your stories, we would just love to, because we have so many things to learn about your experiences. You have both been so eloquent. I'm so fond of you, Leon. You've been such a great friend and such a support to our family, and it's, you know, you've been our cheer team from the get-go. And you know, our Landon and grandmas in the chat, you know how much we appreciate everything that you've taught us and the strength that we have learned from you. For both of you, we want to bless the journeys that you take going forward, and we you know, just pray and bless you that journey will be the safest it can possibly be. As we close out tonight, I'm going to come to Sara first, just to get the straight white comments out of the road. Then, if it's okay, we'll come to you, Leon. We'll leave the closing thoughts for you, Landon. So what do you think, Sara?
Do you know what?
What have you learned? Tell me what you've learned tonight. Did you learn what
so much I've learned. I mean, there was a lot I learned about pride flags, because I didn't know some of that stuff about pride flags, which is just one kind of thing. But mostly what I've learned is the importance of recognising the depth of harm that is caused by misgendering. We know that. We kind of know it up here, don't we? But it's kind of that feeling the pain that people go through when that is their daily lived experience. And I think the other thing that's kind of left me a bit horrified about what is going on in society, what are we doing, and why are we tolerating it, is the level of hate crime that is going on for trans community. We talk about it, we know about it, we're aware of it, but actually it brings me to one of the most favourite quotes that I've kind of heard in a very, very long time, which is, if you claim to be an ally, and you are not standing close enough to get hit and you're not getting hit by the same stones that the person you claim to be an ally to, you're not standing close enough. And if we're claiming to be an ally to any of our LGBT community, any of our trans community, if we're claiming to be an ally anywhere, if we're not getting hit by stones, then we're not close enough. And if we're not prepared to put our head up above the parapet and speak out because we're too worried about the impact it will have on how people see us, then there's a problem as well, isn't there? Absolutely. And I think it's just kind of left me aware that there's so much more work to do. And I'm just taken. I genuinely cannot think of the words that I want to use to express the courage that I see in Landon and Leon, the strength that I see in you guys, and the unfairness of the lives that you're having to live. But you're bloody amazing.
Amen. I'm sorry the church has not been good enough. I'm sorry that we've not been good enough. And we're gonna try and make it do our bit to make it better. Leon, anything we haven't asked or any other, what would you like to share tonight? That you'd like.
I learned something. I learned about new pronouns. It just proves that in the community we don't know everything. Yeah. And sadly, there's people that think they know everything in the community, and it sucks. But normal, straight, cisgender people need to stop have their arses up so far, heads up so far up the arses they can smell their own shit. Get them out, otherwise I'm going to come and pull them out for you.
Thank you so much.
I love it. Leon. You get busy, Leon.
Start in my hometown and work outwards.
Absolutely.
You go for it.
Okay, Landon. Anything we haven't asked you, and do you want to close out with some thoughts?
No, I think everything's been covered on my end. But closing thoughts. Everyone's just obsessed with us. Everyone's obsessed with us. That's the issue here. They can't get over, like, queer people. They make a sensational story, good or bad. You mentioned queer, people are listening more. Whether it's good or bad, they're listening more. Yeah. And that's, proves a lot about our community and what we are and how we are and how even we can be better. Like, I'm trans, but I need to be more inclusive of my intersex siblings. I need to be more aware of what people of color go through in the community. I need to be more aware of the history in the community. It doesn't just end at me knowing a few flags and what neopronouns are.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I want to ask all of our audience, if you're having any Pride experiences, if you're planning to go, if you're planning to attend, support LGBTQ owned businesses near you. You will find some. If you're in the United Kingdom, I would like you all, and I'm going.
Jay's having internet issues now. Oh, Jay's having issues, but I'm
on the same internet. Oopsie.
Because she's cis, is what it is.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is.
How did Sara? Well, yeah. Oh.
Okay. We're gonna have to take this out. No, we're gonna have to.
We're on our way back because we haven't quite finished with you all yet. I'm really.
Oh.
Okay.
We thought we had freedom.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm the new Jane.
Don't leave, because I want you all. This is because I tried to write something and it didn't go well. Anyway, I want you all to go to this shop called Celebrate with Pride, and it's a Pride-owned business. It uses Pride-owned, it's a queer business. It uses queer suppliers for all of its products, and it's part of the community in Glasgow. It's at the world famous Barras Market. We are not being endorsed, or we've not been paid to promote this. There at all. But what we have seen is this is a business that people can go just to talk and be supported, and places like that don't come around often. So if you would show them some love and support, go check out their website that we put in the link. They will post you some of their fabulous products.
Got that from
So
there.
good.
Got that.
And they have a fan. They have a so that Landon can do a Thorpe. It will look extremely fashionable at Pride. If you want to show any of your LGBTQ plus family, loved ones, friends some love, go get them a card. This business will hook you up, help them feel visible and seen while you support a queer-owned business themselves. If you're going to Pride, you don't have to be alone. Reach out if you are going to be in Edinburgh this week. We would love to see you there. If you're going to be anywhere throughout the United Kingdom, if you're going to be anywhere throughout the world, we'd just love to hear about your Pride experiences. So don't forget to get in touch. Thank you so much for your support tonight. We will be back this Sunday night, not here, over on Nemo the Mormon's channel, where we have got some thrilling stuff to talk about. Nemo's back to his dissident, controversial best on Sunday night. It's going to be good, right?
He's on a roll. I spoke to him tonight, and he's on a serious roll preparing for Sunday night.
Guys, this is going to be good.
Norman. This is going to be Nemo rocking and rolling out there in a way that I'm not seen for a while.
Absolutely, you're going to love it. So, and we will be back next Wednesday night with another show as we prepare for the rest of Pride Month. We've got lots of things to talk about. Be good to yourselves, and if you need to reach out at all, you can contact us through our social media channels. Leon, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, is that okay?
Facebook. Jane's got my Facebook.
Drop us a message. We'll put you in touch. If anyone wants to speak to Landon,
we'll pass it on to Leon.
Don't, because Landon is my child. And if you want to speak to them, drop me a message and I will immediately delete it. You creepy person. No, that's a no.
I am 16. That's a boundary, man.
Thank you guys so much. You have been incredible. This is one of my favourite interviews because we had so much to learn from you guys. So it's really appreciated. Now, go take a break. We'll maybe hang out for a few minutes after the show, but I think we're going to go watch some Drag Race now. Thank you, Queen Rue, for making our lives so much better. And thank you to Landon and Leon for everything that you've done and supported us with tonight. Love to you all. Have a great night.